4 years now. The word home is written inside a cutout of Arizona, my home state. The physical condition of the sign has weathered over time, but for me, there has been a more significant change in its meaning. In the beginning, I would see that sign every night before bed and feel a lump in my stomach. Homesick and overwhelmed, I wished I could teleport back to Arizona. Blair felt nothing like home. And the thing that scared me the most was the communal bathrooms. I didn't really know how to handle the whole shower situation, and on my first night in Locke, sophomore girls were blasting music while singing into their hairbrushes. I, shyly and uncomfortably, kept to myself. Why didn't they miss home as much as I did? Sobbing in the shower that night, I thought, if I flew home tomorrow, would I disappoint everyone? I felt alone. But slowly, the sign became less of a reminder of home, and I began to take comfort in the regularity of a routine here. Thanks to breakfast sign-in, I could always rely on having someone to eat with in the morning, and afterward knew that I could count on Mr. Pagano to give me a high five on my way into Clinton. I was comfortable, and Blair was just okay. Then, I joined JV soccer, and something changed. Miss Williams, you are the first person who made Blair feel like home. Playing for your team of uncoordinated yet spirited girls, you encouraged me to realize that in order to make a home, you have to take comfort in the people. With complete confidence and an encouraging amount of enthusiasm, you would say, find chemistry with the team and you're bound to win. Well, we never won a single game. But I've carried your words with me off the field. Yes, Blair does have some impressive buildings and fields, but the thing that makes this place special is the people who fill campus. Home at Blair isn't physical. Home here is the night before Sadie, desperately trying to teach Chloe Rayer to walk in heels while she strut down the hall, wobbling like a baby giraffe. It's playing wiffle ball and spike ball on the Catherine Lakeside lawn while silently laughing at the intense competition of the day boys. Every day, I am reminded of how lucky I am to be surrounded by all of you. With an inspiring ability to be thoughtful and brave, you are the people that transform Blair into something that is more than just a school. So this year, that is what I encourage you to do. Make this place home. Take advantage of those nights spent on the turf and the Sundays that you do homework while somehow simultaneously managing to be outside with friends. New students, this is your opportunity to start finding pieces of your family and building the foundation of your home at Blair. You don't know it now, but the people surrounding you will become your closest confidants and friends. You will find your people. Returning students, remember that a home is constantly growing and changing. Don't confine yourself to only the people you've learned to love and trust in the past. Take the challenge to expand your home a little bit and reach out to someone new. By the end of this year, I hope that the meaning of home slightly changes for all of you the way it has for me. I hung up my sign last week and I saw Arizona, but I also saw something more. I saw the dance parties in Locke freshman year, the early breakfast with friends who always make me laugh, even at 7:30 in the morning, and the nights spent in my room with the people who really have become family. Our time at Blair is limited. It may not seem like a reality now, but soon we'll be connecting with this place from afar. So, as we gather here today to start a new school year, friends already made and friends yet to be made, each of us has the option whether to spend the time locked inside a home for one or to open our doors for others. Make Blair your home. The choice is yours. Thank you.
I'm Corey Downey. First, let me start by addressing the seniors. Guys, there is no doubt that we are exceptional. We know how to make hustle plays, we know how to put on a performance, and we know how to come out on top in every aspect of our lives. But only when we have worked for it. In order to be great, whether it be in the classroom or on the field, we must work and pursue our aspirations diligently. There is a quote by an anonymous source that says, those at the top of the mountain did not fall there. Meaning, people who have achieved success did not simply stumble upon it. They climbed to its summit. A couple of examples are last year when the football team tore 5 ACLs in one season. That didn't stop us from working through rehab and getting back on the field or track. Numerous times in class, I've raised my hand feeling very confident in the answer, just to find out I was completely wrong. Although it was slightly embarrassing, I will never forget that the correct answer was the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. The challenges we have faced and fought through have made us into the young adults we are. While we may only have a year left, we have the most responsibilities of any student body on campus. It is time to demonstrate the qualities of a leader and the attributes of great people. We have the means and the will. All that's left is to follow through and to look good while doing it.
I don't even
Underclassmen, not much changes for you. Us seniors have all been in your position before, and you will all grow up just like we did. I remember years ago when I, like Roman, had crowds of freshmen following me all over campus. And while I don't necessarily remember all the things Mr. Branwood taught me about the Odyssey, I do remember stampeding from one location to the next as a freshman unit each and every Saturday night. The important thing is to be present to all the things life has to offer. Being present to those moments will help you better appreciate your high school experience. It may also help you to recognize characteristics in yourself which you didn't know you had. Being present is the key to having a successful and abundantly happy time at school or at home. Along with that, build relationships with the people around you. Seek your interests together. Especially when boarding, high school can feel lonely. But know that there are people who share your hobbies, and being yourself will help draw those people to you. Every day is a chance to get better and experience something new alongside our peers, classmates, and teammates. So as a school, let's start this year powerfully and finish having done something great. Thank you.
evening, everyone. Good evening. It is my pleasure as your head of school to officially open the 2019-20 school year at this Blair's 172nd Convocation. Tomorrow, we officially begin classes. Tomorrow, a new chapter begins for each of us. Tomorrow is a blank page. Whether as new students you're poised to write the opening lines of your Blair experience, or as seniors you'll begin to chronicle the many lasts and hopefully some firsts of your Blair career, or whether you're adding to the already decades-long novel spanning generations, as many of our Blair veteran faculty have been. As we stare at tomorrow's blank page in each of our Blair stories, let's commit to writing good ones. True to who we are, and true to who we aspire to be. Stories that will not only make us proud, but honor our families and friends and the thousands of Blair Buccaneers who sat in your seats here and across this campus since 1848. So when tomorrow comes, the story you write will have a lot to do with how you choose to answer the following question. How will you show up? How will you show up in the classes that you're confident in, but also the ones that really intimidate you? How will you show up when your team is blowing away the competition, and how will you show up when it's being beaten down? When you're simply hanging out with friends new and old in the can, and when one of those friends needs you to step up or stand up for them? How will you show up? On exam days, on opening nights, at school meetings, on petty day. As that blank page is poised to be filled with great opportunities and, to be honest, no less great challenges, how will you show up tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that? So on that question, I humbly offer 3 words of advice. Be all in. There are many ideas to be explored here. Friendships to be made, music and plays to be performed. There are games to be won and sometimes lost. There are equations to be solved and literature and poetry to be read and written. Brave conversations to be had, debates to be had across this, our society of skeptics. There are traditions to be upheld and there are new ones to be created. There's an entire world to be visited. There are robots to be fabricated, research to be conducted, talent shows and tugs of war to be battled over. There is a cup to be won. Isn't that right, Mr. Evans? There's a cup to be won. And there is a community upon this hilltop to be forged anew, as it has been every year for 172 years. And together we can achieve more than we thought possible if each of us, when we show up for these and all the other things in between, tomorrow and every day, choose or dare to be all in. So what do I mean by that? To me, it just means showing up with your whole heart and an open mind, with love and curiosity. It means being courageous, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable enough to lead with that love and curiosity in our learning, in the relationships that we build here, and in how we engage with one another and the world far from this campus. I believe that, actually scratch that, I know that the best schools, the best teams, the best lives lived are the ones that are grounded in courage by people like us who dare to be all in. How many of you ever said, I love you to someone, not knowing with certainty whether you would hear those same words spoken back to you? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, that's pretty personal. I'm now looking at Mrs. Fortunato, who I think at this moment is wondering why I'm calling her out and why I'm looking in her direction. It was nearly 20 years ago that I uttered those 3 words for the first time to Mrs. Fortunato. I can vividly remember every pulse-pounding moment of anxiety and vulnerability that washed over me as I practiced those lines over and over in my head in the little lead-up to it. But I'll tell you that a little bit later. I'll conclude tonight, later, what she said back. Yes. Of course, the reality, guys, she's right there. It's not a big cliffhanger. She's right there. All right, let's say more than just saying those words. And this time I actually am going to ask you to do a show of hands. How many of you have ever felt love for something that you really cared about? I don't know if it's something that you do like soccer or surfing or singing, or place like your home or school or camp? How many of you felt that love so strong that you wouldn't want to imagine living without it? How many of you have put your heart and soul into something you care about, even when the odds were against you and the outcome was uncertain? How many of you have voiced your opinion, stood up for your beliefs, or disagreed with someone you care about, not knowing what the reaction would be? And while you were doing any of these things, how many of you were afraid that you might fail, be embarrassed, lose something important to you, or face consequences, but you chose to go ahead anyway? Okay. So then you've already begun to understand. Slowly. Then you've begun to understand what Nelson Mandela said. Courage is that willingness to be all in. To love even at the risk of disappointment, failure, pain, or loss. It is a leap of faith and a commitment to tap into something, to tap into vulnerability instead of hiding behind it, revealing who we really are and what we care about most. Even though, and especially when, to be honest, it scares the hell out of us. And the movement of these slides scares the hell out of me. There we go. To act from that kind of love. To act from that kind of love represents the height of vulnerability and strength that can guide you through any darkness. And that, my friends, is how I'm going to ask all of us to choose to show up in this new chapter of our Blair lives. It means taking the risk to say, I love you first. And, maybe sometimes literally, but probably most of the time metaphorically. Putting yourself out there even when the people or things that you love may not love you back in the ways that you'd hoped for. That goes for the sport or the play that you wanted to try out for, but you fear you might not make the cut. For the people you want in your life, but aren't sure whether they're really going to embrace the real you. For the class you care about that might humble you with its difficulty, and for the stand you feel you must take, unsure of who will stand for you or behind you when that's done. And none of it's easy. Most things in life that are worth it never are. Putting your whole heart into something, and excuse the pun, it's not for the faint of heart. Going all in means knowing the heights of joy and also knowing heartbreak. All in people are destined to experience both. There's absolutely no way around it. You want to achieve and succeed and find joy, you will experience heartbreak along the way. But that's what Teddy Roosevelt called entering the arena and daring greatly. Blair is your school. It is your second home. But my friends, it's also your arena. It's your place to dare greatly. How many of you have ever received the advice to get outside your comfort zone? Sound familiar? I think I've given it to you, probably more than once. So I know I've given that advice, but I want to be straight with you on something. The reality of getting outside your comfort zone shockingly means feeling really uncomfortable, out of sorts, and sometimes totally overwhelmed. Do you know what that feeling's like? Yeah? In your head, in your heart, your whole body can feel it sometimes. And if anyone ever tells you how cool it was, or how psyched they were in the moment to be getting away, or to be getting outside their comfort zones, they were lying. It's not easy. But let me assure you something of which I'm 100% certain, and I'm not 100% certain of everything in life. There is nothing you nor we cannot get through when we commit to not being only all in, but being all in together. So when moments of disappointment arise, remember this, which you will discover slowly as it appears on the screen. It is the courage to continue that counts. And the courage to continue is not only in each of you, it also lives in the power of our community, to be there for one another as we do at our best. So lean on your teams, on your advisors, on your teachers, on your coaches, on your mentors, and your classmates. And in turn, do the same for them. For so much of showing up is not just showing up for ourselves, but showing up for each other. And if you ever need role models to admire and emulate about what it looks like to be all in. How fortunate are we to have a room filled with them? Mr. Mentegna's loud, proud, and wholehearted love of his players, on and off the court. Mr. Evans' heartfelt cheerleading for his performers and for all Buccaneers on Petty Day. Mrs. Shaw and Mrs. Conforti-Browse's relentless and loving commitments to being there for their students with open doors and often tough conversations. Mr. Padden's devotion to the ski team and to the wonder of all things mathematical at Blair. Mrs. Ryerson's unending capacity to advocate for students and make things happen for them. All around this entire room, there are depths, there's reservoirs of love that fuel a courageous willingness to be in the arena, to wear vulnerability as a badge of honor and not a weakness, and to help others. And that, new students, that is the community you've chosen to enter. So build on that courage. Show up willingly to share your stories, to be yourselves, to dare greatly. And remember, you will discover. So, speaking of taking your shot, I probably should resolve that cliffhanger that you're all worried about just a little bit earlier. So I'm not sure technologically this is going to work, but we're going to do our best efforts. Have any of you ever seen the TV show Friends? A couple? All right, okay, good. So before I told my wife that I loved her for the first time, I had not long before watched the following clip from an episode of Friends. It may not play, but if it does, it's going to be great. If not, I'll describe it to you. Hold on.
Tell you something. I've been thinking. I'm just gonna come out and say it, okay? I think I love you.
Oh. Thank you.
It's no problem.
So that scene looped in my head for months leading up to that day, but gratefully, no surprise, thank you. Mrs. Fortunato said, "I love you back," as opposed to "thank you." And I'm forever glad that I took my shot. And I'm pretty sure that she meant it because she's still here. So thank you. Here's one thing you should also know. Something I was reminded of very poignantly by the absolutely wonderful Linda Tong, class of 2019, in her graduation address. She told us how she came to understand her 4-year Blair journey as first and foremost a love story. Though importantly, she went on to say that it was not a fairy tale love story that started on day one. It's important for you to know that most people don't show up here on day one magically feeling all in, embracing vulnerability without reservation from the moment they step through the door. Often we have to not only work at it, but also give ourselves the gift of time to figure it out. We need to be reminded it's a process. I think about my own Blair love story, to use Linda Tong's label. As much as I loved what this place was about from the moment I first visited here in 2012, it took me time. It took me time to experience that feeling of being all in, of being, so to speak, in love with Blair. Even as the person in charge of running this whole place, I wasn't yet ready on day one to embrace the vulnerability necessary to feel the kind of love and belonging that I aspired to and I witnessed all around me. And when I think about why, I think I was simply afraid. If I were to go all in with Blair, what if Blair didn't love me back? And in those first days, I was not yet of this place. I was not even yet of boarding school. I never attended or worked at a boarding school before I came here to lead one. I was Harvard, not Blair. I was change. I was, in fact, at times, the tradition killer. And I had to find my way through those early days of uncertainty as to whether I belonged. But you know, one of the great things about this place, and all of you, we're much more interested in knowing one another for who we genuinely are. And though we're not perfect, we know we're stronger together. And that every one of us here, from new freshmen headmasters. We're all just human beings, writing our stories, seeking to belong, living and learning side by side in the same arena together. There are a lot of people in the world who are not brave enough to enter this arena with us. There's an author and a researcher named Brene Brown. Several of us read her book, Dare to Lead, this summer. She calls those people the ones who like to criticize and judge, but who themselves are unwilling to take brave risks. You know those people? Maybe? She calls them the people in the cheap seats. Let me be clear here. There are no cheap seats in this theater. There are no cheap seats at Blair Academy. This is our arena. This is where I ask all of you to show up. It's where we must show up and step up. That is what fuels learning. It fuels innovation, achievement, and belonging. I have no time for cowards, haters, or cynics, intent on shutting or putting down people willing to take brave chances on their ideas or their choices or their identities or stories. We are better than that, and I expect us to be better than that in the years ahead. And frankly, we have to be. We live at a time in which facts, news, science, decency, and humanity are under attack, in which too many people flee from civil discussion, or worse, they seek to shame people rather than to understand them. And that has become toxic, with way too many people opting out of vital conversations about what matters most because they're afraid. They're afraid of saying the wrong thing, they're afraid of being called out, they're afraid of being labeled, feeling that shame, feeling ignorant, being called worse things than I just said. But we don't have to accept a world that exists at extremes, whether it's political correctness on one side or abject offensiveness on the other. Here we don't choose comfort over hard conversations, because guess what? We actually literally and beyond hold the high ground on this great hill of ours. There should be nothing we cannot discuss and work our way through, even and maybe especially when it's contentious or emotional or painful or confusing, as long as we commit to being all in for one another. That means a humble willingness to try, even if we say the wrong thing. It means admitting our mistakes, and it means recognizing that there is much more to each of us that we don't even know about one another. Here's a good place to start. We start with why. On this front, there is no more singularly powerful word than why. And this year, I encourage us to embrace the use of this word with the frequency that we all probably used it when we were a lot younger, in our childhood. Start with why. Seek to understand where others are coming from, where their ideas and values came from, how they understand the world. Ask people what they think, what they feel, what they believe in, and give them the time and space to answer that question without interruption. People spend so much time in life trying to debate, trying to persuade, trying to validate their own perspectives. And trust me, I'm a former attorney. I agree with all those wonderful ways of engaging with people. I believe in the value of persuasion, of helping others to see things as you see them. But as an educator and as the head of the school at this time in its history, I believe our mission demands an even higher calling, that we bravely strive to see one another, to learn one another's stories, and help one another belong. Now, to do that, we must embrace and not flee from disagreement. Kindness may be the Blair way, but kindness is not the absence of disagreement. It is not the absence of conflict. Kindness is being willing to ask why. Even if you can't imagine agreeing with what was just said, even if it gets under your skin, even if it makes you furious. The first time I stood on this stage to address you, or address students, 6 years ago at the start of school, I asked everyone to consider another simple but fundamental question: what do you stand for? Over the last 6 years, among the over 1,300 or so students, 200 or so faculty and staff, hundreds of parents, alums, and friends of the school I've had the privilege of getting to know and meeting, one thing has been abundantly clear to me. Just because we may stand for different things doesn't mean we stand apart. Just in the last several years, in classes and seminars and roundtables and beyond, we discussed gun violence, racial intolerance, human rights, identity politics, geopolitical and religious conflicts across the globe, affirmative action in the college process, just to name a few topics, each time choosing to not be afraid of disagreement or conflict. Because in the end, we always stand together. Not in spite of, but because we've been willing to learn about one another. We're willing to engage in genuine disagreement, and we're open to listening to and empathizing with one another. So today I'm going to ask all of you to up our game on this front. We need to be better. In fact, I think we can be the best at this, and the world demands that we do that now. That means we're going to have to practice this often, and I'm looking to all of you to help us together as a community. God bless you. In the year to come. Before I conclude, I wanted to make mention, without realizing it, over the last several years, I seem to have created a tradition of ending Convocation with a gift to the community. A few years ago, I bought the naming rights to a Blair star. The next year, it was a Blair flashlight for everyone, which I hope you all continue to use, but hopefully you don't have to use too often this year. And last year, you received a challenge coin as a symbol of belonging to our community. I'd like this to become a thing. I'd like this to become a tradition. So as some of you, or actually I think all of you know, because I heard the applause this morning, earlier in the summer we decided to adjust our dress code to allow for hooded sweatshirts. I saw a couple of people at the clap for that, but you can do that again if you want. So over the last several weeks, as I thought about this year's Convocation gift, with that change in mind, it seemed all the more appropriate to gift to every student, every faculty member, every staff member, and every trustee the following. I've been wearing mine for the last week. They're very comfortable, so I think you'll enjoy it. You're welcome. For all of you, may they be a source of comfort as you not only step outside on chilly fall mornings, but maybe step outside your comfort zones. May they warm your head and your heart as you go forth this year. And as you fill those empty pages of your Blair story tomorrow, and all the many days beyond, may they be a reminder of what it feels like to be all in, and to be all in something together. I'm so excited to start this year together. Have an amazing school year. Thank you, everyone.
Many of you are probably familiar with the traditional Gaelic blessing I will offer this evening. What you may not know is that it is often used at the beginning of a new year, particularly, so at the beginning of this academic year. I wish for you this blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, the rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Amen. You can get your hoodies outside in the arena. Seniors first.